Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we've talked about how the first ladies of Korea have a real risk factor in bringing down a presidency, in being corrupt, and we were focusing on the potential incoming first lady of this new administration, Yoon Suk-yeol's wife and Lee Jae-myung's wife. Both with very high risk profiles. If you haven't checked out those videos, there are a lot on this channel, so you can get a sense of why people were thinking that once they got into office, not only do you have to worry about the president, you got to worry about his wife pulling stunts. Well, it looks like we don't even have to get started with the new administration for First Lady drama, because there's a hornet's nest that's been kicked up about the outgoing First Lady's fashion budget. And at first I was like, oh, this story seems so contrived. It seems like perhaps bitter grapes or something fluffy that is just trying to capture the news cycle. But I looked into it a little further, put on my thinking cap, and this is a pure revenge drama. You might have come for the fashions to see, like, what kind of clothes, accessories, and shoes and jewelry has gotten President Moon Jae-in's wife into a lot of hot mess. You might have come for the fashions, but you gotta stay for the hot tea. Alright, so what is the accusation? The accusation is that President Moon's wife, Jeong-sook, had used taxpayer money over the past 5 years to fund an exorbitant wardrobe. And you could see it on display in very high-profile events when she accompanied her husband, especially on overseas missions. A lot of the times, on a positive note, people are saying that this is fashion diplomacy, and definitely under President Park Geun-hye, she also had this fashion diplomacy label put on as a positive thing. It's an icebreaker. It represents the country well. You want to make sure your wife look good, and especially with probably like all the money that Melania was spending on herself, I guess President Moon's wife also wanted to portray Korea in a very fashion forward manner. Now the question is that did she use her own money or did she use taxpayer money? Now this issue in it of itself sounds still a little bit trite. In my opinion, she shouldn't have used taxpayer money, but for the amount of political attack, it just didn't add up in my mind until I thought about it. Why? They are accusing her of using taxpayer money that goes through the Special Activities Fund. The Special Activities Fund, follow me, is essentially money that is given to the presidential office, to the prosecution, and to other key agencies. Every year they get money from the National Intelligence Service, which is our version of the CIA. And this money is meant to be spent on intelligence operations, whatever that means, because we don't know what that means because they won't tell us. And that's the thing with this money. This money never gets accounted for in the public. They never have to submit the receipts. We don't even know where this money is. And quite frankly, we don't even know the total budget. But the way the game is played is that the president in the Blue House appoints the director of the National Intelligence Service. So there's always been kind of this unstated, well, at least to the public, rule that, if you give us money and if you take care of our special activities budget, meaning give us some more money, then we, as the Blue House, are going to give your agency even more money. So in Korea, it's quite odd. The president gets to set the budget, And so the president has the power to increase the NIS's budget. So the NIS, of course, is going to be always happy to play along, be like, okay, how much money do you need this year? You know, nobody can even check this. So like, hey, here you go. And this special activities fund has been a point of attack for each political side to nab each other. So, part of President Park's 32-year sentence, 8 years of that was because of this special activities fund. The political enemies on the left at that time were saying like, you know, President Park looks like she's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on her clothes, and it might be coming from this, you know, special slush funds given to you by the spy agency. And so 3 former spy agency chiefs went to jail because they were convicted of sending money to the Blue House that looked like it was going to President Park's friend Choi Soon-sil, even a boutique where President Park had her clothes made. So do you see how this relates? This is kind of a political revenge. President Park went down because of her clothes, most likely funded by the spy agency. And what's even shadier is that her best friend, Choi Soon-sil, she ran that boutique that made the president's clothes. So she was probably also skimming off some money. And this amount was only about $3 million. The total special activities budget under President Park was about $800 million. Reportedly, under the President Moon Jae-in administration, who promised to be much more transparent and would be, you know, involved in all that kind of like drama with this slush fund, reduced it to $300 million a year. But we don't know the exact amount. And that's still quite a lot of money if you are actually using it for non-intelligence purposes, and most likely it's to pay off political favors. And so this whole attack against President Moon's wife to say that she spent way too much money on clothes and it looks like she used taxpayer money, the critical component of this debate and this attack is a lawsuit by a so-called citizens group saying, okay, produce the receipts. Prove to us that the clothes were not purchased by the taxpayer-funded slush fund of this, you know, nebulous intelligence agency budget that you get every year. And the reason why it's a bigger issue than just the clothes is that the game is not just about her heels, her supposed Cartier brooch, her real high fashion. Once you get the data of the purchases, or if they have to release financial records, there's always something else in there. It's hard to kind of filter out like, oh, this is only just for the clothes. Once they get approval of to just get in there and just get all the information out, then you see who the other people who might have stolen some money might be. And this is a bigger game. It's a much bigger game. It's to get revenge by whom? The conservatives, now that they're in power, are asking for all the receipts so that they can see what the liberals were doing in the Blue House for the past 4 to 5 years and where that money was going. And a lot of times there's a high probability that that money is going to your political enemies. And if you can use this one case about just her clothes to then shoot down all of your political enemies on the other side and send them to jail, this is a golden opportunity. So, don't just believe that it's just about the clothes. They're trying to go after other people, because remember from a lot of other content on this channel, a lot of the scandals that were brought to light were not even direct investigations of that scandal. Like the Burning Sun with Seungni, he wasn't even on the radar or the list. Remember, it was a whole thing about some dude getting beat up outside the club, and he was just trying to save some girl from being assaulted. And then once they started pulling the string, all this other stuff came out, and even Seungni of Big Bang got all caught up, and international investors got caught up. It was a big mess. Once you open that Pandora's box on one issue, you find bigger fish, better fish, more enemies that you can take down. And this is I'm telling you, this is a brutal, brutal game of politics here in Korea. It's not just about her clothes. And yeah, they probably want to nab her, but what they really want to see are the receipts, the ledgers of everything else that was paid for. Now, this Citizens Committee has been on it since 2018, suing for the rights to get access to these documents. They were blocked, but who would have thought this month the court said that, oh, okay, you can have this information now. Why did the court suddenly have a change of heart? Well, because there's a new administration, so now the conservatives are in power, so now they have to pander to what this conservative group wanted in terms of exposing the administration of Moon Jae-in. As long as Moon Jae-in was in power, they could suppress that lawsuit. But now the Moon Jae-in administration has argued, and they've argued from the beginning, that actually releasing this data actually is bad for national security, because it's going to expose information that's not supposed to be out there in the welfare of the country and how it does its statecraft, and who knows, like, where, we might have to just, face up to the fact that, like, doing business around the world requires probably a slush fund, and probably other countries don't even want this to come out. So they've argued that we can't give it, and so they're appealing. Now, the critical deadline that they're really coming across is May 9th, because May 9th is when President Moon officially leaves office and Yoon Suk-yeol becomes the president after being president-elect, and those records, including whether she spent money on the clothes from taxpayers or not, become then presidential records. And once it's a presidential record and gets sent to the presidential archives, then those records cannot be released for 30 years. So most likely we're not going to get this information, and they're going to be able to delay this appeal until it's useless, because then the records become presidential archivable material that gets locked for 30 years. However, the Blue House and also the First Lady herself has said that all of these clothes were bought by private funds, her own money, or they were donated or sponsored, and that with some of the clothes she gave them away. And so she's hedging, and she's basically saying that none of the Special Activities Fund's money went into these clothes. But there's a lot of this smoke keeps, billowing, because most likely there are insiders who know that she's vulnerable on this point, and that through this point they could probably get to someone else. So on the one hand, when we're looking at this from outside, we're just like, oh my God, we're like talking about her clothes. And, on the one hand, I mean, this is just a personal opinion. To a certain limit, I believe that actually you should have a budget for your First Lady to look good. I don't know if that is sort of wasteful, but fashion is definitely power, and even Korean people are very obsessed with looking good and invest money, sometimes too much, in what they wear. And I think it is appropriate that there is some budget, not like an exorbitant budget, but some budget to make sure that when the First Lady of Korea goes on diplomatic missions and actually is just representing Korea, you want her to look good. Had she not looked good, people would have criticized her for that. I believe you me, if she did not dress the part, people would have attacked her. And so that is why I at first thought that this whole thing was a little bit frivolous, but if you see this as a battle in the context of a bigger war, it makes so much sense, because President Park, she had 3 of her former NIS officials, and they're the conservatives, right? So the liberals had jailed up conservatives over this special activities fund. When President Moon came into office, I remember they even trapped some of these people over at the NIS because it's a long-standing tradition to send over this money to the Blue House. And then the Blue House was like feigning shock. They're like, oh my God, what are you talking about? This money comes in here? This money seems so corrupt. Oh, we got to look into this. And so they used that as a way to get back at the conservatives and the former government, and they were able to inflict a lot of political damage. Now, I thought after that, President Moon would just basically be like, okay, no money, because I think that's what he said, like no money from the NIS. Let's not get into that mess. But obviously, it has perhaps a real purpose in terms of intelligence. But on the other hand, the senior secretaries, I think that they get in there, and they're the ones that really handle this money. They were probably clamoring like, look, I starved and did my best. I worked on your campaign for free. Like, this is my payback. And that's probably a big piggy bank to pay people back for helping a president get into power. And so there's probably a lot of people who are sweating bullets right now and don't want this to get out there. Also, you guys, remember, Yoon Suk-yeol was an appointee by President Moon to be the prosecutor general. And once Yoon Suk-yeol started looking into the Special Activities Fund corruption allegations of the Moon Jae-in administration a few years back, that's when he got attacked politically by the liberals and by the Justice Minister, Choo Mi-ae. She was the face of that movement to remove Yoon Suk-yeol from his job. There were other points that she accused him of, like spying on judges, but really the thing that triggered it was this investigation into the Special Activities Fund. So there is a huge amount of political pressure to keep the lid on where this money goes, because this money is probably going to a lot of people who are in power who could be stripped of power if the details got out. And so why would you not think that now that Yoon Suk-yeol is the president and he had gotten fired for looking into the Special Activities Fund, why would you not think that his political allies and cronies are going to use the same Special Activities Fund to now launch a counterattack again for revenge? It's revenge, you guys. It's always about revenge, and the ticket in has to be, like I said, to get the public behind you and the interest, something that they can touch, feel, and want, but can't have. That's the most critical part. And in this case, it's fancy clothes, accessories, shoes. They even want to know how much each lunchbox set cost when they were having cabinet meetings. I guess that money also comes from this special activities fund. And so when people are jealous of those material things, that's when you have a foothold to then mount your political battle. Because otherwise, people just kind of, don't really get the other stuff. But spending too much money on clothes and criticizing the previous president for spending too much money on clothes, that is something that people can sink their teeth into. And that is what is happening right now. So again, President Moon's wife denies that any state taxpayer money went into her clothing and her couture. But the conservatives are still accusing her and asking for the receipts, and it is my belief that they're asking for the receipts because they just don't want to nab her. They want to go after all the other people on that ledger who most likely are key members of the liberal political elite. That's the real game. So what do you think? Do you think that she is just like excessive with her clothing? I mean, they said that was like over 200 outfits that they could document, and then she probably spent like millions of dollars on it. But I don't think that that is actually the real battle because, 2-3 million out of like 300 million, where'd the rest go? That's the real story. That's what we should really be focused on. And most of the public will only just stop at the clothes, but you and me here, we want to go further to the hundreds of millions of dollars. Where'd that go? All right, guys, leave your comments below and be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.